Yeah, I'm creating the cluster. Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yeah, sure.
Creating new cluster. Create. Gamut card open cluster, for example. Just say create. In the meantime, let me be ready with the Kubernetes architectural diagram. Did you go through the yesterday's class? Any questions you have for me? Okay, so we develop the application, we build the application, we create a Docker image, and then we'll push that image to Docker Hub. Okay. This is your YAML file, deployment.yaml files, for example. So here, let me ask to create 10 parts. Okay. From this particular image, that is gamut cart image. And then we want to expose port number 8080. And then we want to create the load balancer. So these are the worker nodes. Worker node 3, worker node 2, worker node 1. Say it will create 10 pods. Let's see if the cluster is ready. It's still running. Just give me a second. The first is clone. This is our gamut cart project. Okay. We clone, we build the var file. Third step, we create the image, push that image to the Docker hub. Fourth step. Fifth step, what we do? We go to Kubernetes and then we execute that YAML file, correct? So if you execute the YAML file, what will happen? Kubernetes, according to your YAML file, it will go and then create the environment for you, pods inside your Kubernetes cluster, correct? Okay. Yesterday, we have written this YAML file and we were able to successfully create the pods.
Hi, sir. Actually, I have one doubt. This is a serverless architecture, right?
Serverless architecture.
Like we don't have to manage master or nodes over here, right?
Yeah, we don't have to manage master and node because we are using the Kubernetes cluster.
And nodes also we don't have to manage.
We don't have to manage nodes. We don't have to manage server. Yeah.
Yeah. So suppose if something is like there on premise, and if they are asking like how to create a cluster over there, because what I remember that in classes we know that master creation and node creation, but suppose a cluster is required for on premise, then
We know how to create the cluster, right? We have created, no? Initially.
like
Same thing.
like
We have created a master, right? We have
okay,
created a master. And then you remember we have created a worker node and we
yes,
joined
correct,
worker node with the master also. That means it's a cluster.
yes. Okay, so this no master node and worker nodes like consist of can we can say like it's a kind of
Cluster.
cluster.
Yeah. So cluster means this. This is called the cluster. Cluster means collection of your worker nodes plus master. That's a cluster. That's called the cluster. So if you have one worker node attached to the master, you say that it is single node cluster. If you have two nodes attached to the master, you say it's a two node cluster. It's that.
Okay.
Okay. Just give me 1 minute. Clear, Ashish?
Yeah, I understood. I thought that how many nodes are there that we say like 4 to 5 or 7, 8? How many nodes are there? Worker nodes. So
Worker node.
that contains a cluster.
Yes. Okay. If you have the confusion, think like this. Okay. Think this as a cluster. Okay. 3 node cluster it is.
Yeah.
But master is also part of the cluster. Without master, you cannot manage this, right? So that's the reason
Correct.
we don't count master, but master is there. Master, 1 or 2 masters will be there for sure. So Master is also part of the cluster.
Okay.
But we use master for managing the things, work node for running your applications.
If we have to create a NPS type of load balancer, then how will we get the IP address of the nodes or worker nodes?
Come again, Lokesh.
If we have to create a load balancer using node port type service, how will we get the IP addresses of the worker nodes?
When you have a mission, I didn't get your question. It will be having IP address for sure, right?
No, in this type of Kubernetes engine, Google Kubernetes engine in here.
I mean, in case of GKE.
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay. So I'll show that to you. Okay, so we can list worker nodes here also, and you can take them. I'll show that to you. Once we get some worker nodes, I'll show you.
Okay.
Okay, this is the cluster. Okay, and this is the command using which you can connect to the cluster. In your case, you just copy this command, run in this Cloud Shell. Okay, I have a different way. So I am connecting to it from my Linux machine. kubectl get parts. We don't have any parts. Okay. So this is the YAML file. Okay. This will create 5 replicas. Let's first create the replicas. So I'm going to create 5 replicas first. kubectl apply -f deployment.yaml file. kubectl get parts. Parts are still created. It's taking time because Google has to allocate worker nodes, right? For enough number of worker nodes for getting these parts. So I think that is the reason. Since we're running it first time, it is taking some time. Otherwise, we resolved all the issues in last class. See, the container is getting created. Running. Third one. Get parts. So we have 4 parts running. Okay, done. So now it is time to create the load balancer, right? So how do you create the load balancer? Earlier, we created the load balancer using node port. Laukik, you asked the question, right? So see this. kubectl get nodes. Okay. How many nodes you have here? 2 worker nodes. Okay. If you want to see their IPs, you can use this -o wide. So if you want to see the IP addresses, we can use this option called -o wide. You see the IP address here? Okay.
Yes, sir. External IP.
Okay. This one you can use for node port. Okay. So today I'm going to show you the load balancer of type load balancer. So this is load balancer, right? You create load balancer using service, correct? Using service. We have 3 kinds of services. One, node port service. Node port service. Second one, load balancer type service. And then we have something called cluster IP type service. 3 services we have. Using any one of these 3 services, you can create a load balancer. We have used for our Nginx project, we used node port type service. Using node port, we were able to expose the application to outside world. But there is a drawback in node port type load balancer, right? If the node port, right? So we have to use any one of the worker nodes IP as URL, endpoint or URL, endpoint to the for the users. Assume that I use this IP. If this goes down, then I have to change, and I cannot change. I cannot keep on giving new IPs to the users. Correct? There should be only one URL, right? One endpoint for the user. That is a drawback of node port type service, but it is inbuilt feature of Kubernetes. You don't need to pay for using this load balancer. Kubernetes has that feature. Since it is free, right? We use it for internal applications and then test environments that I explained before. But for production kind of load balancers, we use load balancer type service. How load balancer type service works? Very simple. If you declare your service type as load balancer, okay, you know what Kubernetes will do? Kubernetes will not create the load balancer. Kubernetes, in fact, will go to your cloud. For example, you have Kubernetes running in Google Cloud. Google Cloud. It knows how to talk to Google Cloud. So Kubernetes will interact with the Google Cloud. It will ask Google Cloud to set up the load balancer for you. Clear? So what Google Cloud will do, probably it will take a machine like this. Okay, it will take a machine like this. It will install load balancing software, for example, and then it will give you a load balancer for you. Who is creating the load balancer? Whose load balancer you're using? Google Cloud. If you're using Kubernetes in AWS, okay, so you, when Kubernetes will talk to AWS, then it will give the AWS load balancer. Okay. Since we are using Google's load balancer, we have to pay for this service. So load balancer type service, if you use, you have to pay, because that load balancer type service comes from your cloud provider. And the advantage is what? It will give you fixed IP address. It will give you a fixed IP address. That is the advantage of load balancer type service. So how do you create the service? API version, kind is equal to service. Service has a name. Service has some labels. This is service specification. Okay. Earlier, I used type as node port. Okay. This is load balancer. And we are getting the load balancer, right? So we have to select all these parts and then attach these parts to the load balancer, correct? How do you select the parts? Using their label. So what label? We have 5 parts, right? All 5 parts have this label, correct? So that means whatever label you have used in your deployment item, same thing you have to use. So this is it. App : gamut cart -pod. Okay. App : gamut cart -pod. So selector. Simple. Service, metadata, specification, load balancer type service. This is your, that's how you select the part. And then under ports, you have to declare 2. Okay. One is for the user. One is for your, this is your container port. What is the target? Target is to hit the application running in your container, correct? So this is target port, remember that way. This is the user port. Clear with this? Okay. Let me first create it, then I'll explain it. So let's create the service first. kubectl apply -f service.yaml. kubectl get service -f watch. See, external IP is still pending. Now it's what's happening, tell me. So Kubernetes is talking to your Google Cloud. Google Cloud is working on creating the load balancer. So once load balancer is ready, it will give you the load balancer IP address here, and it's a fixed IP. This is a fixed IP. I'm using watch here. Instead of running this command again and again, I'm using watch. See, it was pending. Now you got this. So whose load balancer it is? What is the load balancer type? What is the service type we are using? What is the load balancer type? Load balancer. It is load balancer type load balancer. Okay. So this is the external IP. You can use this. Let me use it and then access the application. Colon 8080 slash, what is our bar file name? Gamut. So this is the IP address 34.170.74. http :/34.174.170.74 34.170.74.16:8080 gamut. That's IP address. URL. Okay. So this is how it works. Let's go to the service. kubectl get service. This is the service we have created just now. You see here 8080 is mapped to 31.833. So remember, when it comes to the load balancer, two things you need to declare. One is for the user, port. Whatever port you mention here, user will have to use it. This is the target port. Okay. So the moment user types :8080, this is IP address, right? So 8080 means it will come to this. It will come to load balancer. Okay. So this is the port mapping you have. 8080 is mapped to, say, is here. 8080 is mapped to 31833. 31833. That is again mapped to 8080. Something like this, okay? So the moment you type 8080, it will come to the load balancer, okay? And then anything comes to the load balancer, that will go to 31833. So 31833 is the part port. You don't need to give that, it will automatically take it randomly, okay? Randomly in the sense, between the range 30,000 to 32,627, something like that, okay? So between that range, it will take the port. So 31833. So it will go to the pod. From pod, it is going to 8080. So end of the day, whatever server you are running in your containers, that you have to give here. Remember, no need to get confusion much. So this is for the user. This is the one which is this is the one. This one is of the server which is running in your container. Clear with this?
But we don't mention that 31833 port. So how it's taking that one?
It will automatically take it. So
Like this is this port is for load balancer or something like that.
So Kubernetes has, that's a default behavior. One second, I'll give that range also. You remember when we discussed about port, we have selected, correct? 31,000.
Yeah, we user only mentioned in a survey YAML file, and
Yeah.
I got same doubt.
See this?
Use node port.
So one second. So we have taken 31,000, right? So this is the range, Kubernetes port range. So since you are setting up the node port, right? I mean, it's not about you, whether you are setting up or not. Since it's a Kubernetes own thing. It's in the end of the day, it is Kubernetes who maps the ports and everything, correct? There's a system. So Kubernetes has this rule, okay? So you can select ports for different reasons between this range, 30,000 to 32,767. If it is node port, we have to mention it, okay? I think there also you don't need to mention. Without mentioning also it will take. No. There you have to mention because 31,000, now whatever you select this is the user's endpoint, right? This will go as part of the user endpoint. Say for example, if it is a node port, you have to give this port to the user. So there we manually select it, okay, between this range. In case of load balancer type service, we don't need to. So Kubernetes will already take one port in this range. If you see here in our case, it has taken 31,833. That is in this range. We don't need to do. It will automatically pick up one because it knows the range and it can take any. It can choose anything. Right? There are options, so it will automatically take it. That's how Kubernetes works. We don't need to
This is like default range, right?
default range. If you want, you can also mention here instead of. So if you want, in the case of load balancer, also you can mention that. Say kubectl delete service name. I'm deleting it, let's say. I guess you can declare also port, target port. I think it is node port. For example, 31,000. I think you can watch. See, it has taken 31,000. We are waiting for the fixed IP. If you want, you can give here also. But even if you don't give, it will take one. Earlier it has taken in that. Now if you want particularly one port, I can also give that. Since it's a default, I have not mentioned it. So remember, in case of load balancer, whatever you declare here, this will be used by the user. In case of node port, this will be used by the user. Okay. If it is load balancer type, user has to use this. And this is anyway the container port. Okay, whatever server is running, that is same in node port or load balancer. So if it's a node port service, IP address colon, this one will be used by your user. If it is a load balancer, this one. See, we got this. Service. Okay, can somebody type? This is another public load balancer. Anybody in the world can access our Gamut Cart application. Since this IP came from the Google, right? Google Cloud. Since it's a load balancer type service, this IP is fixed. So because we are using their load balancer, right? So they, they'll make sure that IP is always fixed. We don't have to worry about that. So for production applications, we use load balancer type service. Can somebody type this? $34,173. You can type in mobile as well. Mobile type.
34.
173 198.
Support is 8080.
.41 4880.
Yes, not working. Not working, sir.
34 173 198
42
41
41.
colon 8080 / Gamut Cart.
Yes, it's working.
Yeah, that means so we are able to set up the public load balance. And you know the difference between node port and load balancer. Clear with this? Any questions you have so far? Ashish, you asked for the load balancer setup. So this is the production.
I can access it now. But what I understood that suppose compared to Docker or Kubernetes, I think when exposing to for all the users, then Kubernetes comes into picture.
Very easily you can do that. If it is a Docker, if there is no Kubernetes, then as we discussed before, network engineer, we have to take network engineer support, and then they have to do all that stuff.
Yes, yeah, a lot of stuffs need to be done.
Which is very difficult, yeah. And these days, Docker is not there. It's no more now. We use Docker only for the images, right? When it we
Do
have
questions comes from like Docker for all these things for networking thing?
Don't worry. People will not ask you how you set up public load balancer in Docker. No, people know, whole world know that Docker is already gone. Don't worry about that.
Okay, so Docker is just for creating an image.
Image, that's all.
Okay.
Nobody asks you. 98%, it's all Kubernetes job. Everything is handled by Kubernetes only today, and it's only Kubernetes. Very popular. There are Kubernetes kind of tools, but Kubernetes is the popular, and it's open source. This thing. So don't worry about doing these things in Docker. Okay. If at all, see, those questions come in interview, I would have taken, right? I would have created some examples for you, but don't worry. It's discussing those things is with and wasting time is doesn't make sense. Same time, if you spend in Kubernetes, we learn a lot of maybe few new topics here. Okay, and again, make sure that your firewall settings is clear. Okay, so first time you have to go to your VPC network firewall. You know that, right? You have to enable the port numbers. I showed in the Nginx class. You know it. You need to show that again.
Suppose we disable the complete firewall D only, then it will work, right?
If you don't enable that port in firewall, then we cannot
No,
access.
not port, actually completely firewall in server if we completely disable the firewall.
If we completely disable the firewall, it should work because there is nobody to stop.
Hmm.
But usually we'll be having firewall for sure, right? In a network.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, it should work because there is nobody to stop. So if you have to go to the firewall, go here, VPC network, firewall, take the first one, existing one. No, here, okay. That 8080 port is coming from Google, right? So they're by default listing, it seems. We don't need to, if it's a load balancer type, then you don't need to change the firewall. Since it is coming from Google Cloud, these guys are adding that to the firewall automatically. Let's see, here it says 8080 Kubernetes. See, it's already added here, 8080. So if it's a load balancer type, you don't need to add. But if it is a node port, you have to add it to the 31,000 or whatever you give to the user, you have to add to the load balancer. That's about it. Okay, so if you want to auto scale the parts, you can do this. See this? kubectl get parts. Or let me list everything. kubectl get nodes, deployments, parts, services. We have 2 nodes. Okay. Deployments, 5 out of 5. 5 parts we have. This is a service. So if you want to scale up and then scale down the parts, you can do this. Auto scaling. So if you want to do that, you can do this. Okay. kubectl auto scale. That's a command. Auto scale. Deployment name -max is equal to 4 -CPU percentage is equal to 70. So this command will create maximum 4 instances and auto scales the instance whenever CPU utilization touches to 70% threshold. 1 second. 1 second. 1 second. We run the auto scale command. This I have added newly. I'm just reading it. When you run the auto scale command, internally it creates HPA. HP takes care of auto scaling activity using below command kubectl get HPA. Auto scaling Kubernetes cluster. Gcloud container clusters, update cluster name, enable auto scaling, minimum nodes, max nodes. Okay, see this. What is the deployment name? This is the deployment, right? Cat deployment .yaml file. This is the deployment. Using this deployment only, we have created 5 parts. Gamut cart app. This is the command. Okay. kubectl auto scale It is deployment who creates the pod, right? Who creates the pod replicas. So auto scale, deployment name. That's the syntax. Kubectl auto scale, deployment name, gamma -app, kubectl pod name. That's the syntax, right? Kubectl auto scale, deployment name. And then assume that, I want to configure auto scale based on CPU. See, at any point of time, I want to maintain 70% CPU or 90%. I can say that if CPU utilization touches to 90%, then auto scale. If CPU utilization touches 90%, auto scale. So we give the CPU percentage here, hyphen CPU percentage is equal to, say, for example, I'll call it as 70. Okay. So auto scale means what? Based on the load, based on the resource availability, you add more parts, or if there is a less load, bring less parts. So see, in Kubernetes, in case of Google Cloud, we pay based on parts. We pay based on number of parts that you're using. 10 parts this much, 20 parts this much, and so on. So you don't want to have extra parts running because you have to pay more. So that's where the auto scale comes into picture. Or say we talk about those big billion days kind of days when there is a more load, cluster has to automatically, add more and more parts. When there is a less load, it should remove extra parts for us. Correct. More load, more people you want to work. Correct. Here I have say 10 parts. 10 parts can handle 10,000 requests. It's a big billion day, right? If 20,000 users come, you have to add more and more parts. Right? More people you need under load balancer to handle more work. Correct. So if you want to configure that, so here I'm giving, okay, if CPU utilization, okay, if CPU percentage utilization touches to 70, then it will trigger the auto scale. Okay, it'll add more, it'll add less. Fine. And you can also give maximum. You can also set max. It will not go beyond this. For example, if I say max 4, for example, hyphen max is equal to 4, it will not go max. If you don't mention max, it'll keep on adding more and more parts. Usually, if it's a production, we don't set max, but you can also set max. So just run it. Hyphen CPU percentage. Correct. That's right, no? Percentage. Hyphen max. 4 parts.
Sir, here 4 means maximum 4 pods will be created.
Maximum 4 parts, no matter whether you are hitting 70% or what it is.
More than that, it will not create.
Yeah. Unknown flags, hyphen CPU percentage. Kubectl auto case, auto scale, deployment name, hyphen max, why? Something got changed or what? I don't know. Let's see. Percent, okay, not percentage. Max is the maximum number of replicas. This is the CPU utilization threshold. If it reaches 70%, then it will go and then add more and more, and it will make sure that maximum will be 4. So only percent. It says auto scaled. Kubectl get pods. We have 5 running, but see, I cannot test and show this to you, but it works. Okay. I also shown you the explanation in the ChatGPT. So, but see, if you want to really test it, more or less, right? You have to, apply more force, but it has to make sure at least 4, right? You said 4, no? So there should be 4 only, but you still see 5 here. You see this terminating. Now you see, we asked for 4, right? So maximum it is maintaining 4. Now it'll maximum is 4. Okay. If there is less load, it'll it'll maintain sometimes 2, sometimes 3 also. If you say maximum 10, it may maintain 5, 6, 4, 5, 4, sometimes 2, based on the load. So you don't run the parts unnecessarily. That's how it works. This is percent. Okay. There is one more option here. I have given the description also. When you run the autoscale command, internally it creates something called horizontal pod autoscaler. Okay. You know pod, right? Pod is a object. Deployment is a object. Service is an object using which you can get a load balancer. So who is handling autoscale then? Who is handling autoscale? For autoscale, there is one object called HPA, horizontal pod autoscaler. So when you use this command, internally Kubernetes will create HPA for you. Like we created deployment, right? Using YAML file. You created deployment. We created service. We created pod using pod, object. So when you say autoscale, Kubernetes will automatically create something called HPA, horizontal pod autoscaler. It is this HPA who takes care of this activity, scaling up, scale down, and things like that. Deployment object, using deployment object, we create multiple replicas. Using service, we set up the load balancer. Using HPA, we handle auto scaling. If in interview they ask you, okay, how do you auto scale your parts? Say using HPA, using horizontal pod autoscaler. That's an object. Clear with that? If you want, you can also list it like deployment. It's an object, right? So you can also list it. Kubectl get parts, get deployments, get services, get HPS. This is the HPA. Now it says you set 70, but what is the current utilization? 2% only. How many parts you have now? It is still running 4. Max 4. Minimum parts is 1. What is this 1? I am not understanding. Get deployments. Set 4, it is running 4. Maybe it will take some time for it to maintain it. Wait, it says minimum min parts. 1 second. Okay. So maximum we have given, right? Maximum we have given. If you want to set minimum also, you can set minimum. So for example, I have my application. At any point of time, no matter, irrespective of the traffic, I want to maintain minimum 2, for example. Minimum 2 parts I want to maintain. You can mention that. Since we have not mentioned that, it is taking 1. Minimum 1 it will maintain. It cannot be 0, right? Assume that you have 0 traffic. Okay. You have 0 traffic for your application. Can you remove the part? Can you make the part count 0? No, right? Minimum 1 part you want. Or you can set minimum 4. Maximum this. Why, for example, say I have my application, right? Even irrespective of the traffic, irrespective of the load, I want to maintain minimum 4, say, for example. Now you will ask me a question. Why minimum 4? Why can't it be only 1? Because then there is no traffic, right? When there is no traffic, why you want minimum 4? Why can't it be 1? I want 4. Why? See, in application, you'll be having your few of your internal things. Got the point? For example, if you go to Flipkart, right? Inside Flipkart application, they'll be running a lot of internal applications. For example, inside the Flipkart, they'll be having some tools, their own tools. Those tools will tell business teams, okay, how many orders are coming from mobile? How many orders are coming from the desktop, right? From tabs, say, for example. And, how many, for example, they want to calculate, the business based on the goods. They'll be having some internal application to analyze the business. For those things, you need to have minimum servers. In those kind of scenarios, you can set, okay, I want minimum these many servers. So like max, we have given max, right? So if you give max, it'll take max is equal to 4. If you want to set minimum also you can set -FN min is equal to 4 or whatever. Since we have not given it, it is taking it as minimum this. Okay, understand that min parts. So when you run this auto scale command, internally Kubernetes will create something called horizontal pod autoscaler. Horizontal pod autoscaler. We call it as HPA. Okay. In interview, sometimes they call it HPA. So internally, it will use that HPA object. It is HPA who does that, who handles that autoscale. What deployment handles, what pod handles, what service object handles, what HPA handles. HPA handles autoscale. So you can also see that. If you want to see more information, I guess you can also use this command. Describe HPA name. Same thing, whatever you see here, same thing it is showing you, it is written here. Resource CPU on pods 2%, but you set it as 70%. Average on 4 pods. So the minimum replicas 1, maximum replicas 4.
But suppose if we set it up for 70%, then it should reach, then only it will create a 4 pods, right?
It should do that. But it is
still without like 2%, I think it is used, but it created a max, like a max pods, like 4 it has created.
4 it has created, correct. I was also expecting to be maybe 2 or 1. Maybe
It should be 1. I think min pods is if 1, then it does not reach the limit 70%.
Correct. It should not give 4. Probably it may take some time, I guess. I'm not sure. I was also thinking the same, because 4 is not required, because it's when you have 2 average, it should not give maintain 4.
If we are not mentioning, then might be it is creating a 4, then we can understand. But without like we already mentioned here that for horizontal scaling, so why created 4?
Yeah. Question. Successful rescale. New size is equal to 4. Reason CPU utilization percentage of request below target. Okay, below target, fine. But why 4? New size 1. It is giving new size 1, but it is showing 4 only. Why? See, it took some time for it, Ashish.
Now it is 1 actually.
No, it took some time for it to terminate the other parts.
Okay.
In there also it is showing one replica.
Where?
There also it is showing one replica. In the previous.
It was showing. That's the reason, it was showing 1, right? In this output, it was showing 1. Then I got that out. So then only I've listed this. So it took 1. So it was showing 4, right? So it took some time for it to reduce. Now let's see the latest one. We have not deleted any parts so far. Everything done by this only. Get parts, get HPA. Okay. That's all. It is average was less, right? So it is running only 1. Now, and it says 2% is the current CPU utilization. If it goes little more, right? So it'll take the decision 2, 3, 4, 5. See, that's all. You just run the auto scale and you can just sit back and then it will handle everything. Yeah. So that's how you auto scale. What else in this?
For experimenting in home, can we add the percentage to 5% or
It's what for our gamut cut application, right? I cannot put more load. There is nothing here for me, to put more load.
no, here we have written 70% maximum. There, if we will add 3% of our person for testing to see what happens.
3% is minimum, it will create 1. No? Even if you make it 3, for example, now, right? So minimum it will maintain 1.
And okay.
Okay, see, if you want to do that, maybe you have to write one application and then you should be able to maybe, if you click something in our application, it will go and then, run something, in the background. So it works. We just noticed, everything. See, max 4, it was 5 parts. Initially, we created 5 parts. When we said 4, it cut down 1 because max we said 4. That is tested. Second thing, right? We were having 4 after that. Then we mentioned 70, but average is 2. When it is 2, it doesn't make sense to have 4. It automatically cut down 1. We noticed that also. Scale down we have seen. Now you have to say scale up. When there's a more load, it has to create more and more parts. So more load I'm unable to add. So it'll work. You're a developer, right, Loki? Maybe try to create a simple web application, right? So if you say 50, you just run something, some script or something, and then create more load. Maybe if you really want, you can test that.
Okay.
Yeah. That's about the auto scale. There is one more point. You need to also have enough number of worker nodes to supply compute, okay, to parts. As parts use worker nodes compute. So using below command, you can auto scale worker nodes. This is not required if you are in the cloud, I guess. I don't understand the reason why we need to do this. So I've added this section newly, okay, recently. So I myself have some questions because this doesn't make sense to me much. Let's just give me 2 minutes. Let me analyze it. Because I know one thing, GKE automatically auto scales the worker nodes, okay? But here it says you need to run this command. So I was confused myself. So that reason I'm asking the reason. One second, I'll explain. It says the previous thing and it says this is also right. So I'm just unlike, just give me 2 more minutes. is there by default. Okay. kubectl get HPA. One thing. Let me first explain the concept. So far what we have done, everybody listen this. Give me another 5-10 minutes max. So you know how to auto scale the parts now based on the CPU, based on RAM also you can set. FN CPU percent, that's an option, right? Based on RAM also you can give. There must be some option for that. Must be hyphen memory. Hyphen CPU percent, hyphen memory percent. If you want to set up based on the memory, that's also possible. CPU percent, memory percent. So that's a part auto scaling, right? What about worker nodes auto scaling? By now you would have understood. We need to have enough number of worker nodes also, right? Correct? Because everybody, they see this. End of the day, these parts are going to use the resources from where? Resources of worker nodes, correct? If you ask for 100, we know this, right? 33 will be created on this, maybe 30 on this, maybe remaining on this. So these are the worker nodes. And then worker node has, these, assume that these worker nodes have 8 GB each, 8 GB, 8 GB, 8 GB, 8 into 3. So total, these parts have 24 GB memory. Say 2 CPUs, 2 CPUs, 2 CPUs, 6 CPUs, correct? Assume that you have only 3 worker nodes. I think you know this, by now you would have understood, just for the clarification, okay? So we have 3 worker nodes, 10 parts. When you add more and more parts, right, that means more parts means more missions you are running. So more memory you want. And 10 parts, say for example, each getting 1 GB RAM. And then you have say 10 GB together, 10 GB you have in 3 worker nodes. 10 GB is utilized by your 10 parts. You create another 10 parts. You need another 10 GB, right? But do you have 10 GB in the source, in the worker nodes? No. So you also have to add more and more worker nodes. So I'll go and then add 3 more, worker nodes. So it's like you added more hardware and then parts have the resources. So you also have to auto scale the worker nodes. You also have to auto scale the worker nodes. So more parts, more worker nodes. Less parts, less worker nodes. Okay. For example, you have 3 worker nodes, 10 GB available, 10 parts are using, say, for example, you create 2 more parts. If these 2 parts, that means these 2 parts don't have enough memory, correct? Or CPU. If the pod, remember this, if the pod doesn't get enough resource, pod will be in pending state. This is a very, very popular interview question. I see pod status as pending. Why? What could be the reasons? One of the reasons is what? If the resource availability is less, pod will go on pending state, first thing. And pod has other states also. Crash loop back off error. If the container is not running, it will throw that error. And then what's that? Back off image back off error, something, right? If the image pool fails, right, you will get that error. And one more thing, it will be in the pending. If the pod doesn't get enough resources, it will be in a pending state. There is one more thing, okay? Just remember this. You can also configure pods to run on a specific worker node. Who is deciding where a particular pod should run? Kubernetes, correct? If you want, you can also do this, right? I want to run this pod always on worker node 1 only. If you want, you can do that as well. Okay. So for that, there is something called node selector. Okay. There is something called set affinity. If you write set affinity, and then if you use this node selector keys in YAML file, you can do that. I'm not showing it to you. If you want, you can explore it later. You can also do that. Okay. For example, you schedule this pod on the worker node only. What if this worker node goes down? Pod will go on pending state. So when pod will go on pending state, if it doesn't get enough resources, and if the worker node on which the pod is running is not available, and you have specifically tied up the pod with that worker node, the pod cannot be run on any other worker node. In that case, pod will go on pending state. That's one extra information. Remember that. Okay. So if you use GKE, right, you don't need to auto scale your worker node. No, not required. Google Cloud automatically takes care of adding enough number of worker nodes for you. Yes, you don't need to worry about this. But sometimes they say, if you want to change the default, I would say 90% it is not required. We don't have to, auto scale, configure the auto scale, because Google Cloud automatically takes care of it. But sometimes you may want to set min max. You don't want to go with the Google's auto scaling. I want to say, okay, minimum, no matter what, make sure that I have 4 worker nodes, right? Max, I have make sure that max 10. In that case, you can configure. Otherwise, you don't need to, is what they say. See this? If you want to understand the point or not. Like how you auto scale the parts, you can also auto scale your worker nodes. If you want, you can configure it, but it is not required. If you want to configure, this is the command we use. G-Cloud container, clusters, update, you have to give the cluster name. This is the command. G-Cloud is the Google Cloud command. For Maven, it is Maven, MVN. For Kubernetes, it is kubectl, right? For Google Cloud, if you want to, work with the Google Cloud missions or, load balancers or anything, we use this command, G-Cloud, Google Cloud command, G-Cloud. And Google Cloud has services. Google Cloud has, VMs. Google Cloud has a lot of services, right? Container means we are telling Google Cloud, okay, I'm going to use container, Kubernetes command. For Kubernetes, we have to give container. Then you may be having multiple clusters, right? So you have to say clusters. I'm updating the cluster. It's a cluster related command again. Update. You have to give the cluster name. You may be having multiple clusters. I want to update my cluster, right? So this is the thing for enabling auto scaling. Min nodes, max nodes. If you want to set up this minimum maximum, then only you need to use this command. Otherwise, Google will automatically takes care of it. You must be having a question now. Go ahead. What is that question? I said Google will automatically take care of worker node auto scaling, right? And I also say if you want to set minimum maximum, then you have to configure it. So why you want to have minimum maximum? Not required. Google will take care of it, right? Google will take care min max, right? It knows how many minimum are required, how many maximum required. Then why you have to configure it? Why you may want to configure it? Again, for your internal things. Okay. Sometimes, on this worker nodes, you may be having some monitoring system, your own monitoring systems. Monitoring tools are configured to run on this. So you'll be having your own monitoring system. Your monitoring systems will go to the worker node and collect a lot of data. These big things collect a lot of data. And for this monitoring tool to work, you may need to have minimum 2-3 worker nodes and things like that. In that case, Google doesn't understand because this is your monitoring tool, right? And you have some specific requirement there. In that case, you may want minimum 3. Even though 3 worker nodes are not required, Google says 3 worker nodes are not required. But I want 3 minimum for something else. So in that case, you may want to tell Google, okay, fine, I understand you will take care of everything, min, max, and everything, but I want 3 minimum bars. In that case, you configure min. Max anyway, you don't want to spend much money, say, for example, right? So you can select, max. You can set max also because Google may add, 100, 200. You will have to pay, right? So you may want to set max. For production, usually we don't set max. So but minimum you may want to. So this is not required. Mostly we don't need. Google will take care of it. But if at all you want to, this is the thing. We need to also have enough number of worker nodes to supply compute. We need to also have enough number of worker nodes to supply compute to pods as pod uses worker nodes compute. In GKE cluster, Google Cloud automatically takes care of worker nodes of this schedule. However, if you want a specific requirements, okay. That's about the auto scaling.
I
Yeah.
have one doubt.
Yeah.
Uh, Not in the GKE, in Kubernetes, we are giving like resource allocation and master we are creating, worker node we are creating. How memory managed system is going in Kubernetes?
Am I gonna?
Memory management system, how which one it is following? Suppose if you'll take Python means it will take like a heap and stack memory managed system. How it is going here in Kubernetes?
In Python, what did you mention?
Like a heap, 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 and the stack memory will allocate like that. Here in Kubernetes, we are creating master and worker nodes and a resource allocation. We are doing how memory and auto scaling also you are doing. So how memory management system is working here?
No, Aruna. Both are different.
Okay.
You mentioned Python, it's a programming language,
Huh.
right? You are talking about how Python as a programming language manages the memory.
Yes.
Here, Kubernetes is not a programming language, it's a tool. It's a
Tool also
here,
it will follow some memory management systems, right?
as you're talking about, you want to understand at a tool level, then I would understand.
Uh,
So understand your point. You have a point here, yes. So you're talking about Python, how Python manages the memory when it comes to running its application, correct? You have a
Yeah.
calculator, right? You develop the calculator using Python program, right? How, end of the day, it's program which is running your calculator, right?
Yes,
How,
yes, correct.
program manages the memory is what your question.
Hmm.
For example, I can build this calculator using Java also, correct? So
Yeah.
how Java manages the memory? In Java also we have the same concept, as you said, heap memory, right?
Hmm.
It's something called JVM heap memory, and in Java, right, you have something called what's that? Just forgot suddenly. Okay, in Java, you have something called garbage collector. Okay, so if you have, say, for example, for others, Aruna knows this. That's the reason she asked the question, I guess. So this is for others. Okay, say A is equal to 10. Okay, string name is equal to hello. But to answer your question, Arna, I don't know, but I'm just explaining your question to others. Okay, one second, I'll come to your question. String name is equal to hello. See this, everybody? String, this they were Java, say, for example. Okay, I worked on Java, so I know about Java. In Python, how it manages, I'm not really sure. So I think in Python also it's the same way almost, as far as I know. String name is equal to hello. Okay. So when you say string, Java allocates some memory for this internally, correct? Some bytes of memory. And then it stores this hello in this memory, the value. And name of this variable name is name. After some time, say for example, you delete this name string. Means what? It can remove this, right? Because there is no variable, so you don't need this hello, correct? But you know what Java does for efficiency? It'll, even though it is not referred, it'll still keep it for you for some time, because next time when you refer it, instead of creating and then again giving it to you from scratch, it can just go and point it to that. So if you're not referring a variable, Java will, Java will still maintain that, and sometimes it'll delete it. It decides. So in Java, there is something called garbage collector. What's that? Garbage, we call it as GC, garbage collector. So if you are, assume that you have developed some application using Java, okay? You have developed some application using Java. So end of the day, it's a Java who is running your application, right? That means Java program is running. So inside the Java, they have the logic, okay? Garbage collector. So that garbage collector, for every few seconds, minutes, according to how they have the setup, it will go and then check the memory and stuff like that, and it will automatically manage it. So it will balance the memory, okay? Whether to remove something, whether to keep something, and things like that. We call this memory where the program is running as heap memory. Heap memory. Heap memory means the memory, the RAM. It's not complete RAM, okay? Memory, assume that you have allocated 2 GB. So I say 2 GB is the heap memory, but your system has 4 GB. So you allocated 2 GB to this calculator application developed by program, okay? So the memory where your program or application is running is called the heap memory. Heap memory is different. Heap memory is the memory of the application. Memory is your general memory, RAM. This is how Java works. Similarly, Python also, I think Python also almost follows the same thing. Now, Aruna asked, you have Kubernetes, right? So Kubernetes as a tool, as a system, her question is not about the application. So far, what we discussed about is pod memory, worker node memory. Right? That's related to application memory. She is asking about the Kubernetes tool memory details. How Kubernetes is running end of the day, all these things, right? So question is about how Kubernetes as a tool is managing the memory. Kubernetes as an application. So
Exactly.
I
Simple.
don't know. I don't know. Because see, it's Kubernetes developers know. Because if I'm not a user, you don't know, right? So Kubernetes developers know, how they programmed Kubernetes to manage the memory. Again, it's not Kubernetes. We have to understand the Go thing. Kubernetes is developed in Golang, Karuna. So in Java, this is how it manages. In Python, this is how it manages. If you know how Go language manages the memory, same thing applies to Kubernetes. So I won't spend much time. I'm also curious to know. Let me just ask only one question to ChatGPT. How memory management? I worked on Java, so I know Java. How memory management happens in Golang as opposed to Java? No, let's see. Let's ask a broad question first. See, here also you have something called garbage collector. So Go is also like similar to Java only. So like I told you, so in Java, this guy comes and then manages the memory. Okay, you don't need to do that. So in Go also it's the same thing. Arna. There is something called garbage collector. Okay. There is a heap memory. There is something called stack memory also. You also mentioned the same thing. I'm not going to include the details about stack. This is a heap memory. Go uses automatic garbage collector to reclaim memory that is no longer reachable or referenced. Same like Java, whatever I explained. Go uses non-generational tricolor. Oh my, that's too hectic to understand. Similar to Java, Arna. Okay. See, Kubernetes developers should have this knowledge for sure. And you know what? I'm telling this to everybody. This is the question, where interviewer now finds the experience of a developer. Usually senior developers, senior Java developers, great Java developers, worked on great projects, have experience of building something from scratch. Only those developers know about the garbage collector and things like that. See, whatever I explained is, 1% of it. This is 1%. Yeah. 1%. If it is 1% of 1% about this garbage collector. But if you are a Java developer, people ask a lot of questions, right? What if can I change the default behavior of garbage collector? How it works? There is some stack memory, heap memory. Again, a lot of things are there. So developers know all those things. Okay. So leave that. Arna, I'm not the right person to answer your question, but it's similar to Java. Okay, but for others' benefit, I just try to, I know few more things about Java garbage collector, but that's a few developer things. But I just explained at a very high level what is heap memory, just to respect your question and then make other people get some extra information. Okay, Karna.
Yeah.
I'm just checking quickly if I missed something. I think that's all pretty much about Kubernetes. That's the end of Kubernetes. Planned things, okay? But I told you to explore a few more topics, right? Can you note this down? I think it is not there in the notes. Just note it down. Just read, okay? What is PBPVC? This is about setting up volumes for your pods. So note down Helm charts, explore Helm charts. 1 second, let me give you an order. Auto scaling anyway, I have explained, not required.
I think Helm charts, it's like questions used to come.
Correct. You're right. So this is the most kind of theory, stateful set.
Stateless means these are APIs or what?
No, applications. Stateful. You remember in Docker session, when we discussed about the volume, I mentioned
Yeah.
you store the user session information. That's when we created the volume, we mounted the volume. That's in Docker,
Yeah.
right? Kubernetes. Okay, this is the sequence. Just note down this. In order, when you get some time, you can explore these things. I would say, as Ashish mentioned, I'll put this on the help charts.
What is this charts belongs to?
This is like a okay. Oh, sorry. There is one more session. Okay, one more
Okay.
project is there. 1 second. It's not about the Helm, but 1 second. We discussed about the Gamut card. Right? Gamut card project is over. I have another project called Guestbook. Guestbook. So there I'll explain about cluster IP and and we never worked with the database so far. Correct? What if you have database in your application? 3-tier architecture. So there is one more project. I'll take that in the next class. That's the last class. So Helm is like this. How many YAML files we have here? 2. In our next project, you will understand. There I'll be using 5 YAML files. I'll be executing 4, 5, or say almost 6 YAML files. And if you see, you have to execute these YAML files in a sequence. First, front-end parts you have to create, back-end parts you have to create. You have to set up the load balancer for front-end, then you have to set up the load balancer for back-end, and so on. So executing all these things one by one is a kind of little, sometimes it is difficult. So there's something called Helm. Helm is kind of a packaging tool for Kubernetes. So with Helm, right, we call it Helm chart. You can have all this 10, 20 YAML files as a pack. You can get a package, and then you can set some rules there, which will need to be executed first, second, and things that we just execute a command. It'll run all those YAML files in sequence for us. So for that, we use Helm charts. I don't know.
Okay. What database we are using? Oracle or MySQL?
Oh, I'll be using MongoDB.
Mongo. Okay.
If you know that, then you understand other database you're using.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. See, you may be having questions. See, I could have not just listed like this. I could have made like this class notes, but I'm transparent, as you know, right? I'm giving you. You ask me like why you are not covering this. These are the planned things. Okay. It's endless. Okay. Usually, if you are appearing for certification in Kubernetes, okay, there is something called CK, Certified Kubernetes Administrator, CKA. Let me show you that also. Certified Kubernetes Administrator. Okay, so if you want to do any certification after the course, probably you can choose either AWS Solution Architect, or do the certification. So this will be more valued. You can probably take CKA first, then cloud next. It will be almost 10,000 rupees, the exam fees. You have to pay directly to this CNCF Foundation, the Linux Foundation, or it's a CNCF, Cloud Native Foundation. $395, say 400. It's 32,000. No, right?
Yeah, it is like, I think more than 20. I guess 24 or something was there before.
33. No. Should be around 10,000, right?
No, I think this is for classes or something like that. But I remember that someone told me that it's 24,000, something like that.
No, when I checked long back, I remember it's at around 12,000 rupees. Does it include because it says the Linux Foundation, it is coming from Linux Foundation. Does it include training also? Let's go to
I
Kubernetes.
think yes, it's have a
Training also. That is training one.
But with this course also, it is also okay, no, sir? But with this DevOps course also, it will be okay, sir, for job purpose.
DevOps course?
Yes, we are currently which course we are working with. This
What is the question?
without pursuing CKA or
That's what, right? Say, that's where I'm coming from. So you can ask me why I have not included all these topics. Okay, because these are all related to CKA. And if I take these topics, no, it will be, Kubernetes only will become, say, 60, 70 hours. You want my point, right?
yes, sir.
So I have to go with a balance, right? When outside people are teaching DevOps 40, 45 hours, I'm teaching almost 90 to 100 hours, correct? So I'm already on the double side. I'm already giving you, more than, say 98, 100 classes opposite to the 40, 45. So to balance, that's the reason I have not included. See, for your work, this is what I believe in, okay? This is how I drive my classes. My primary thing is to give you subject, right? Whatever is required for you to work in real time. See, you're all here for the job, right? So that's how I curated my curriculum. Only Git we can spend 2 months. Only Jenkins we can spend 3 months. Only for Kubernetes we can spend 3-4 months also. So I have to go balance, right? With that, to maintain that balance, I have not included this. But if at all, you have to take that certification, you have to go through all these things. I can also take, but only Kubernetes will become 78 hours. Okay, so even if I do that, you will not spend that much of time, 200 hours for DevOps. I also cannot do. A lot of other things are involved there, more hours, more fees, and a lot of things. But one thing I think I can surely say I'm happy for whatever money I'm charging, right? I'm giving, my time, and then I'm giving double than what other people are doing. So my request is, to note this effort, my effort. Otherwise, simply people come and say, no, Kubernetes is not covered, no, completed, no, 100%. So it's a thin line difference. So try to understand that. But my support is there. Go see with this understanding, you know how to set up, on-premise, right? Cloud and everything. And with this knowledge, you should be able to, if you have practiced all things, you should be able to, just matter of going and then running help chat, right? For example, just go like this. ChatGPT will give you everything. 1 second. Give me working example for Helm chart with quotes. So you first need to, of course, understand, learn what is Helm chart and things like that. See, it is giving you. Once you understand the topic, you just need to understand, how to write the code. Now you know how to write the YAML code, right? This is different. See, service has a name. They're selecting the pods, right? And things like that. So with this knowledge, you should be able to understand this. There is a structure, okay? This is how the Helm chart looks like. If you say chart in it, it will, create that structure for you. So with what I'm going to say is, with this knowledge, you should be able to explore these things. Do it. In case if you're not getting something, you can reach out to me. I'll try to help you. Okay. So go with this. Fine. And
if all the things that you have teach, it will be enough for us, sir. I think so.
70% of the work anybody can handle, Lokic, with my course. 70% of the real-time work you can handle.
Yes, sir.
50% I cannot predict because it may be project related and things like that. With on top of what I'm teaching, if somebody spends some extra time, right, 2-3 topics you need to spend extra, right? So with that, I think people should be able to work with a 4.5 years relevant experience. Now you can say that I've been working as a DevOps engineer for last 3.5, 4 years or 4.5 years also. And you claim 4.5 real relevant experience, you attend the interview, you'll be able to crack, provided you practiced all these things, you understood what I explained in the classroom. First thing, right? But again, one cannot crack the interview, by attending 1-2 interviews, right? You attend 6 to 8 interviews, you will be able to crack one for sure. Because I'm telling, because sometimes JD will be different. You have learned some tools. You may be having project specific JD. Sometimes people ask Python as a mandatory or something else, for example, right? So if you attend 6 to 8, there will be one job offer which matches your skill set, whose JD matches your skill set, and that's your cup of tea. And then if you are practicing well, you can crack it. So usually this is what I see. If somebody is attending 6, 8, or 10 interviews, they crack one offer for sure. 8 up to 8, say 10, say for example, for that matter. One crack. Sometimes people crack 2, 3 interviews also. Again, it depends on the JD. So that's how it is. Again, with respect to all these things, in case if you are facing anything or something is not working out, you can reach out to me any point of time. I'm okay to guide you for a lifetime. Okay, no issues on that. But note that I spent a lot of time, okay, compared to my competitors. Notice it. At the same time, it's not about always depending on the timer, right? So when you also have to put some efforts, right? So go and practice this. So if I take challenge chart, okay, maybe half an hour, 1 hour I cover. If you practice on your own, in that process, no, it may take 3-4 days for you, but in that process, you will become proficient without you notice it. You'll become proficient in Kubernetes because you are learning something on your own. It takes 4 days for you to just complete one topic. In that 4 days, now you see how much R&D you do, how much trial and error you go through, how many errors you face, and things like that. So if you do something on your own, now you learn the things, you learn a lot. If I teach you, it's only one dimensional. You always learn what I teach. So that is also there. So if you practice something on top of what I'm teaching, then you'll become efficient. And that's true. Do it. But my support is there. I'll give my support. Don't worry. This is only for Kubernetes. Other tools, you have got full advanced till advanced level. Only it's a Kubernetes. So few things, if you can take on your own, it is good. Okay. So don't worry about the other tools. I covered whatever is required, advanced level. Jenkins is still coming. I will cover that advanced level. I will not ask you to explore anything in Jenkins, Maven, Docker, and things like that. So you know enough. It is only in Kubernetes. Noted. Okay.
CKA or something like AWS DevOps or something you said last time for certification. Which one is the better one?
One second. Certification. Kubernetes and cloud. There was one option here somewhere. Earlier, Kubernetes alone used to handle the certification. I remember there was an option here. Maybe Ashish, looks like they have outsourced that to their training partners. So I think they are only handling the certification. I think that is the reason fee is more.
Yeah, might be increased.
Because this is open source, right? That's how these people also make money. Okay, let me see if you have something. CKA here. Go to
I think we can do like either one of the cloud and then CK will be fine, right?
See this, everybody. If I click on this, is the web shell website, right? CKA. If I click on the CKA right here, see it is taking to Linux Foundation. So they are charging this much. Get a quote. Again, right? They're displaying it in dollar. Okay. probably you try to, if they have India website, you can try to access India for Indian customers. So you know, right? If you go to some websites, you can change the country easier. So based on the country, they charge money. If you select, for example, US, they charge more, maybe some other country less and things like that. There is no option to select India. That means for us also it's the same thing.
I think it's correct. It's $3.95.
Sometimes I was just guessing, in rupees, maybe it is less.
Sir, after
That
completing
happens in some websites.
after completing of this course, currently we are pursuing, Kubernetes will be included in our certificate also. So I think for me, I don't need to extra certificate for Kubernetes or extra course. If we
You get the certification from faculty as a course completion certificate. It's a course completion certificate, right?
yes, there in the course Kubernetes is already included.
I will include that. But here, this is coming from the Kubernetes itself, correct?
Yes,
It is it is not course completion certificate. It talks about your merit, right? My certification talks about whether you have completed the course or not.
yes.
So you decide. Okay, see, this is the thing. 2 certifications are much valued. Either you do CKA or any one cloud, preferably AWS. Which one first, which one next? You discuss and decide based on whether you are working. If you already have to work, or if you are working in a AWS environment, go with the AWS certification first. Otherwise, Kubernetes next. Otherwise, do Kubernetes first. So in 12 months, you get 2 chances. Okay, 2 attempts, 2 chances. Fees thing, I think this is the one. Maybe I don't remember it properly.
How many days it will be valid?
1 year, 1 year validity. In 1 year,
One.
you can take two attempts.
Okay.
And I'm telling you, lot of my students, okay, with little extra effort, they crack this, exam, CK. Lot of my students, hundreds.
I
It's not
think
very
this is
tough.
like important, right? For getting a DevOps job or something like.
Yeah, for job, if you have this, it is very important.
Added
If
advantage.
you have this, if you say that I have Kubernetes certification, people notice you. And provided they need, Kubernetes first.
So suppose if we are having like a cloud certification, like associate certification, will it be like if not doing CK, maybe like later if we are trying for CK, and suppose now if I'm having a associate certification, AWS associate certification, then will it be easier to get a job or in that like DevOps?
Depends on JD, Ashish again. See, for example, I'll tell you, if you go to Infosys, right? Most of their DevOps engineers, they focus more on only DevOps. DevOps, in that case, if it's a CK, they value it much. For example, you go to Capgemini, TCS kind of thing. So their DevOps engineers work both. AWS, they give AWS work and then DevOps work both to DevOps only, most of the time. So there in that company, if you say AWS, then they take you. So it depends on the JD. But if you ask me, more chances, right? Do AWS first.
Actually, I have completed my
For
AWS
for job,
certification.
I know you are asking, you are interested more about getting the job, correct? You're
Yes,
interested more,
yes.
like how soon you can get the job. That's your focus, as of now. So go with the AWS, Ashish. You can go with AWS.
No, AWS is done for me.
Then take CK now, if you want.
No, like
Good, I guess.
I think it will be like little bit tough to get a CK, because what I got from like my colleagues, like it's little bit tough compared to other certifications.
Not really, Ashish. But if you can spend maybe 15, 20 days or 1 month extra, right? Learn some other, few more topics. You should be able to crack.
Okay.
Depends. sometimes, one person says difficult, other person says, hey, it's very easy. It depends on the person. So, but you spend another 1 month extra time on Kubernetes, you will be able to crack.
If
So
we clear all the things you have teased and a little bit help from Google or ChatGPT, then can we go for the job? Then also we can go for the job.
come again, okay.
If we clear the things you have teased us on Kubernetes.
See, right now anybody you can go in and apply for DevOps jobs now.
Yes.
If you have this CKA certificate, then it will be added advantage, is what I meant to say. What was your question? Okay. Sorry, I did not get.
Yes, sir.
You don't, I'm not telling this is mandatory. Okay, I'll talk to you, Lokik. You're not working in software, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's the reason, people usually, people who are already working in software, they know a few things. Since you are not from the software background, I mean, you're not working in software. So I'll tell you how it works in real time, the experiences and all these things. There are few, tweaks and things like that. I'll guide you, okay, after.
Okay, sir.
There are different ways to get a lot of things.
Yes.
So 12 months, okay, 2 hours exam. It's a proctored exam. One person will be watching you, right? The person will ask you to show around around you in a room, right? And things like that. So when it comes to our proctoring, they are a little strict. That means you cannot refer Google and things like that, but you can refer official Kubernetes manual during exam. This documentation you can refer during exam. But if you don't know the concepts, it's like open book, for example, right? But open book means you can access only this. But even then, if you don't know the subject, you cannot copy paste from it. It will not work. So you should know. This document will help you to, remind you few things if you forgot suddenly. So otherwise, you can access this also. Okay. Not mandatory. If you want to have, because the fees is also a little more, is what I feel. Just check, if fees are also, just do some R&D. Not mandatory, but if you ask me, I don't carry a single certificate so far. I don't believe in that, some reason, but sometimes it's very important for jobs, correct? So my company where I worked, all were product-based companies. No company forced me to have certification in something. But usually if you go to service-based companies, you have to work for some clients, correct? Client will demand your payroll company saying, okay, I want resources from you who have this certification done. Client support, force. So payroll company will ask you, if you have certificate, I'll give you the job, I'll give you the salary, or I'll give you this much of time. You should, get certificate and show it to me. That's a force in services companies. It helps for from job perspective, but for skills and then the package and other things, as long as you have right skills, certification is not valid. But you're all here for jobs, right? Most of you. So better you do it. Anyway, it will help you somewhere, someday. My requirements are different, so I don't do it. Okay. Any questions for me today? My students don't look at my certificates and join my classes. So I don't have any force, so I don't do it. So, but if it is required, if that was the case, I had to do it, correct? So you decide, cost versus time versus benefit for you. If you need any extra guidance, I mean, particular scenario, I am in this situation, right? This is my situation. My situation is package, my situation is job, and I cannot wait for 1 month. You may be having personal goals, personal situations, right? So you can discuss those with me offline. I'll share my experience accordingly. Okay. Any other questions for me today? One last left.
Sir, what is namespace? Is it the name of the pods or something else?
Namespace is like a virtual cluster inside Kubernetes cluster. Ask me this question after next class. I'll give you some basics logic.
Okay.
And one more thing. Sorry, 1 second. Sorry. One more thing. Those extra topics are there, right? So I'm also thinking, right, to whenever I get some free time, I'm thinking to maybe, record session. And then if I record those things, whenever I get some free time, I'll be sending it to you. Don't worry, in the future. Maybe after 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, whenever. But if I have something, I'll send it to you. I'll try my level best to send you, those pending topic videos. It's not only your batch, a lot of other batches are also waiting. I wish, I can do it, but let's see. If I do it, I'll send it to you for sure, for free. No worries. Okay, any other questions? Quickly.
Yeah, so you told no that you'll share that for old classes videos.
Ashish, people are working. Give me, 1-2 days time, because earlier Sham was there, so he left now. They messed up, about the fees and things like that. They are working, sir. In 1-2 days, you will get Ashish for sure.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Thank you, sir.
The problem with my resources is, they don't have real experience, and I cannot be harsh with them. That's my working style, and they take it as an advantage, and then sometimes they forget and things like that. So I need to be a little harsh with them. I'll get it done. Sorry. Thank you. Good night, guys.